in this market, you have to price the properties aggressively. And for example, if I mention that I do something, it doesn't mean that you should do it or you want to do it. But typically what I'll do with the seller is I will get their permission if there's a lower offer on the table to just summarily reject the lower offer. And I'm going to come up with the top 2 or 3 offers, and the seller and I are going to discuss those offers. This gal put everything, 54 offers, in a humongous spreadsheet that took her hours to build. And I don't necessarily think that a seller wants that sort of detail. So that's sort of interesting. Everybody has a list of the 25 things we're going to cover today. Okay. And people say to me, they go, hey, you've been in the business a long time. What are you doing these days? I know you used to sell a lot of real estate, but what are you doing? I am semi-retired. I do a little bit of real estate every day. And I usually mention I'm somewhere between Remax and Relax and Xlax. So depending on what day it is, that's what I'm doing. Someone else mentioned, well, where did you get this idea? Or where did you get this list? And the list comes from a book that I wrote. Actually, you can see it on the wall in back of me. It's called From Rookie to Realtor Emeritus, and it's available on Amazon. You can get the Kindle edition of it for $4.99. And if you were to invest $4.99 in something, and let's say you did another deal, or you got something from this webinar, and you've made a $10,000 commission, that's a pretty good return on your money. So 25 ways. The first thing I'd like to mention is each of us, hopefully, each of us has a brain, and we have the left side of the brain and the right side of the brain. The left side of the brain is the logical side of the brain, and the right side of the brain is the emotional side of the brain. So if we're going to win more multiple offers, I want to take a look at the right side of the brain first, which is the emotional side of the brain, and see if there's anything you can do to use that emotion to get someone attracted to your deal. I'm going to give you a couple examples. A number of years ago, I represented a buyer. The market was hot, and at that time, it was a little more expensive for a seller to sell a property to a veteran because they had to pay the full escrow. So I said to the listing agent who had multiple offers, I said, would you mind if I came and presented that offer in person? And he said, not that he had to say yes, he said, yeah, I wouldn't mind. You get to pitch your buyer, tell us about the offer, then you get to leave and we'll tell you what happened. So I went in and I sat down with the listing agent, mom and pop seller, and I said to the listing agent, have you ever been in the service? And he said, no. I said, I haven't been in the service either. I said to the sellers, have you ever been in the service? They said, no, we haven't. I said, my buyer has been in the service. He's put himself in harm's way, and he'd like to buy your house. If there's anything you can do to help him buy that house, I'd appreciate it. And I left. That probably happened 10 years ago. And if I were to tell that story as I just did, I still get choked up thinking about that. And the good news is the listing agent called me back later and he said, surprised me, but they're going with your deal. So the right side of the brain. I'll tell you one other story about the right side of the brain. A number of years ago, I sold a property for an older lady, about 2 acres in Gilbert, and she wanted to downsize. She's retiring, and put it on the market. Of course, within a couple of days, I have several offers on the property. Let's call them A, B, and C, and they're about easily $5,000 apart. So B is 5,000 more, C is 10,000 more than A. So I present the offers to the older lady, and I said, which do you choose? And I'm sure she's going to take the higher offer. She said, I want the A offer, which is of the 3, the lowest offer. And I said, why in the world do you want that offer? She said, the buyer offered to help me move. You hear that? The buyer, when he was going through the property, had a conversation with the seller, noticed she was an older lady and happened to say, I will help you move. And because he used the right side of his brain, the emotional side of his brain, he got the deal. And it was the lowest offer. Okay, so the question is there a way that you can use the right side of your brain? People buy and sell things emotionally, and a lot of times they justify with logic. I think one of the things that we're going to go over today, and Tanya might have sent you, is a property that I have in escrow. We did the inspection. We have the BINSR out to the seller. Seller hasn't responded on the BINSR, but there's a little Spider-Man letter. It's called a love letter, and everybody I'm sure is familiar with writing a little emotional letter to the seller. Everybody have a copy of that in the chat or in the handout, Tanya? So here's the last story I'm going to share with you. Real live story right now, my buyer. So my buyer is looking, kind of like about 350-ish. And he's lost 2 deals on 2 other properties due to multiple offers. The third one, he got the property and did a home inspection. And he asked the seller to do some things, and the seller basically said, I'm not doing anything. So he pulled the plug on this. This is the 4th property that we're going to look at. So he's looking around the house, and he goes into a den, and the seller has got all this Spider-Man stuff. Spider-Man comic books, Spider-Man little miniatures. And he goes, wow, that's like amazing. I'm in the Spider-Man. I go, Hugo, I never knew you're into Spider-Man. What do you mean I'm into Spider-Man? And he goes, I got all the same kind of stuff this guy's got. I said, okay. And of course, he's in love with the house. So I said, Hugo, what I'd like you to do is, could you write me a love letter, but make it a Spider-Man love letter? Just take some pictures of the kids with Spider-Man outfits and you, the family. And that's exactly what he did. He attached this to the purchase contract that we sent over to the listing agent. And surprise, surprise, he got the house. Now, I know some of you are thinking, he got the house, but I'm sure he had the highest offer. No, he didn't have the highest offer. We'll talk about escalation clauses later, but it's $340 list price. I put an offer together that had an escalation clause with $500 bumps. So any offer that comes in, we'll go $500 higher than that offer, but you got to give us a copy of the offer, up to $350. Okay? And the listing agent said to us, there's a $360 offer. You got to go at least $360. So we put $360, and she said, and you've got to give us proof that the buyer can go above the appraisal if it would come in less. So we had to give him a copy of this 401 plan. So what's the moral of the story? The moral of the story is, if you can use the right side of the brain, and I know a lot of engineers and accountants poo-poo the right side of the brain, but it can be really powerful. I was on a Zoom call yesterday, CRS, and it's CRS week. Did you know that, Tanya? It's CRS week this week. And one of the gals said that she had a seller accept an offer because the buyer talked about cats. The buyer had cats, and the buyer looks around the property and sees that the seller has cats. You see these little cat trees, and they write a love letter, and they just say how much they love cats, and we have cats, and you have cats, and the buyer got the cat house. So pets are powerful. If you like taking notes, there's something that you can write down. Pets are powerful. Sometimes I'll go on, I remember once I went on a listing presentation, and there was this little Chihuahua. And you know how Chihuahuas can be? They nip at your ankles. And I'm thinking to myself, I would like to drop kick this Chihuahua right through the plate glass window that teaches him a lesson. But of course, you can't do that if you want to get the listing. And I remember bending down saying to the seller, oh, what a cute little puppy you have here. So pets are powerful. And if we go back to the Hugo story, I want to finish the Hugo story, then we'll open it up and see if you have any questions. examine expectations early. So if you're a note taker, put down examine expectations early. So when I first met Hugo, we had a chat and I told him about my girlfriend Lisa, who a couple of years ago bought a property. And I represented her, made 5 offers on 5 different properties and she lost 5 properties. Why? Because there was a lot of cash in the market. And one of the great questions you can ask a listing agent is, on a multiple offer deal, do you have any cash offers on the table? Because if they have a cash offer that's at or above list price, it's going to be hard to, to beat that deal. Anyway, she made 5 offers on 5 properties. She got the 6th property. And I told that to Hugo, who knows my girlfriend, Lisa. And the reason I told Hugo that is I wanted to set some expectations up early, that this market is in fuego and there are going to be multiple offers in your price range. And I want you to not take it personally if you don't get the first deal, because it might be like Lisa. We might have to make several offers on several properties before you get your deal through. So examine expectations early. That's another Spider-Man story. So Tanya, do we have any excellent questions there that look like they'd like us to take a look at? Any of them jump out at you?
Someone said that they were in a class recently and someone mentioned to be careful of those love letters because of fair housing.
That's an excellent point. Be careful of the fair housing love letters. So if you really think about the love letters we're talking about Spider-Man. And I can tell just by looking at you guys that you are very sharp and you know that Spider-Man and superheroes are not a protected class. I think even Tanya would agree with that. And we talked about cats. And you've learned, I think, John, hopefully you learned this in studying for your real estate license, that dogs and cats are not a protected class. So you could put that in the love letter. But if you put in the love letter, oh my gosh, I'm, in a certain religious group and, this would be great for my religious group, or wow, I can't wait to put up my Christmas decorations. You start impinging on the fair housing stuff. So just be careful of the things that you put in the love letter. And I was going to give you one extra little tip at the back end, but I want to give you the tip now because it's very, very interesting. During World War II, not that I was in World War II, Tanya, but during World War II, they had this expression, loose lips sink ships. Do you know that a lot of sellers have surveillance equipment in their house? They have the little baby teddy bears that can see what's going on. So if you're in a property and you're chatting, or your buyer's chatting with you, just how much they love that property or anything to that effect, just be careful because there's a lot of surveillance going on. Assume, if you represent a buyer in any property that you're going through, that somebody may be listening. So be very careful what you say in that house. Tanya, do we have any other questions that, look stunning? Just no stunning questions? Okay. Max, let's go back to our established
Paul?
Yes?
Well, if I might interrupt just a moment.
You may.
So let's go back to the example that you gave on that the buyers were willing to help the seller move.
Yes.
How would that be documented, or would it be, how would that be conveyed to them, to the seller?
First of all, I'm the listing agent, right? I don't represent the buyer. I didn't even know that the seller was going to be present when the buyer just happened to be walking through the property. I didn't know, nor would I probably care that they had that conversation, but that's totally has nothing to do with me. They have a verbal agreement. That's okay. All I know is she wanted, the A deal, which is the low deal, and she's a happy camper. The buyer's a happy camper. All that stuff is outside of escrow. Fair?
Okay, so it was just a verbal
Yeah.
conversation, nothing documented.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, got it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anyway, going back to the importance, whether you're dealing with a buyer or seller, to establish expectations early. That makes sense? We may see multiple offers on the property as soon as we put it on the market. That doesn't mean we underprice the property. That's just the nature of the Enfuego hot market that we're in. Max Dupree said, the first responsibility of a leader, and you could change that to salesperson, is to establish expectations. So I want to go back again to our Hugo story, because there's one other piece of this puzzle. It's been said that a good attorney knows the law. A great attorney knows the judge. Anybody, show of hands, anybody heard that? A good attorney knows the law. A great attorney knows the judge. Now, on Hugo's property, and I want to say it came on the market on a Friday, maybe 2 weeks ago. We went over, we looked at the property. He was crazy about this property. So I called the listing agent and I basically said, you have anything going on this? My buyer really likes the property. And she said, yes, I have several offers already on the property. And here's what we're doing. This is once again Friday. We're opening up offers on Monday at noon. So I wrote the offer, submitted it to her, and then I went to Sedona for the weekend. So I got back Monday morning and I called her up and I said, hey, did we get the property? Now she didn't have to talk to me, right? But she said, well, I kind of told you before what she said. She said, you're going to have to go to 360 and you're going to have to give me a verification of those funds. And I think there was also you got to waive the appraisal thing that we had to stick in there, which we did. And so one of the things on our list is see if you can get to know the judge. It's very, very important that you talk to the listing agent or who's ever responsible for that listing, and you can ask them any questions. They don't have to answer, but if I have a listing on a property and somebody asks me in a friendly way a few questions, for example, the question that I asked her is, do you have any cash offers on the table? Right? Because I want to know that, because it's going to be hard to beat cash offers. And do you have any offers above list price? Now, you can ask them any question that you want. They don't have to answer, but it's very nice to be very nice to the listing agent. And I called the listing agent. I don't care if you are younger and you like to text. Do not text the listing agent. Actually call them on the phone and have a conversation with the listing agent. Don't email the listing agent. Call them and have a very nice conversation on the phone. Is there anything I can do to make you look good? What is the seller looking for as far as a close date? You can imagine some of the questions you can ask the listing agent. And if a buyer's agent would ask me that, and I have a deal in escrow right now that's multiple offers on the property. If you were to ask me that question, I would pretty much tell you, here's what the seller's looking for. Here's how you can make me look good, blah, blah, blah. Let's see. Oh, I'll tell you one other thing. I'm in a mastermind group. Anybody here in a mastermind? John, where are you? Are you in a mastermind group, John? This has got nothing to do with multiple offers, but I have been in a mastermind group probably since 1980. And if you're not in a mastermind group, there are some title companies, maybe Renee could put one together, that have mastermind groups. And in my monthly mastermind, a gal said that she was having a lot of luck helping her agents put together and win multiple offers. And I said, really? Like, what are you doing? She said, I just cut through a deal for a buyer at 265. Can you imagine that? 265, how many offers are on the property? And I said, what happened? She said, after we wrote the offer and I submitted the offer to the listing agent, the buyer decided to drive by the property and the seller just happened to be outside and the buyer struck up a conversation with the seller. Now, I'm not saying send your buyer over to the property with a pizza and some flowers and chocolates and ring the doorbell, but they got in a conversation, and all it took was a little emotional connection, and the buyer and the seller are in escrow right now. The other thing this gal said, who was very good at multiple offers, she said, we're also doing, and it's working real well, a video love letter. So she's getting a buyer to do like a little selfie of themselves and their family and what we like about your house. And she's saying she's sending over to the listing agent both the written love letter and the video love letter. And I personally have never done a video love letter, although I asked Hugo to send me a video love letter, but he didn't want to do that. But he did send me the Spider-Man. So that's another thing that you can do. Okay, Tanya, we are at halfway through. We got any other questions that you think should be answered? No questions? Okay. So what we're going to do for the next half an hour is we're going to go through that list that everybody has, and we can stop at any of these points, but let's make sure that we have all of the points. And obviously the goal is to see if you can take some of these points and mix and match them. And it's very likely you're not going to use just one of the points on here. Having the best price, surprise, surprise. Having the best down payment, increase the earnest money. The property that Hugo bought was $340,000. Typically earnest money, is about 1%. A buyer would typically put down $3,000. Hugo wound up putting down, I want to say $5,000. Hugo could have gone FHA or Hugo could have gone conventional. He wasn't sure. That was between him and the lender. What do you think I put on the purchase contract? FHA or conventional financing? Any guesses? Conventional financing, because conventional financing just looks a little stronger than an FHA. Now, you can't say conventional financing if you know, and the pre-qual letter says they're going FHA financing. You can limit your inspection, or you could remove the inspection. Rather than a 10-day default inspection time, you can make it a 5-day inspection time, or there's some people that are just waiving the inspections. I heard something the other day that I really liked, and the buyer put in a purchase contract, not my buyer or seller, that the buyer will pay the first $500 if there's any repair bins or issues. It's an interesting idea. Remove the appraisal contingency, which is something I think I did for Hugo. Number 6 is write a love letter or video love letter, and you can call these whatever you want, but once again, it's the right side of your brain. You're using the emotional appeal to build a bond between the buyer and the seller. You're an experienced agent. You can say to the selling agent, I've been in the business for whatever, 10 years, 25 years, John has been in the business, if you tuned in late, for 2 weeks. So John, that's not something I would want to share with the listing agent. You could say, I'm working with my broker, and my broker.
That's right.
Yeah.
I have the support of a great team.
We have the support of a great team. I got 72 on my license. Hire a great lender. And something I'm sure some of you have heard is you can get the lender to call the listing agent. So the lender's calling the listing agent and basically saying how well qualified or how quick you can do a deal. I know a lender, actually my daughter is a PR person at a lender, and their big deal is we'll put together a deal in 2 weeks. So the lender or the loan officer or underwriter can call the listing agent and put in a plug for the buyer. The acceleration clause. Is anybody here not familiar with an acceleration clause or an escalation clause? Is there anybody here? Raise your hand if you Not familiar with that. That is probably, we're gonna go over to the left side of the brain right now, and that is the slickest thing since sliced bread. Really, really cool. And it's interesting because I heard something from AAR and AAR's attorney, and they don't really like the escalation clause. But I'm just saying, as a practitioner in the field, nothing is as strong as an escalation clause. And it's just as simple as a lot of you guys know, addendum that's going on the contract, and it says, I will go so much, number one, above any other deal. It could be $500, $1,000, up to a cap, point number two, of yada, yada. And in our situation, 340 list, I said 10 grand higher. And then the third thing it's got to say is it's got to say, but I want to see a copy of that offer or the highest offer. And the listing agent in Hugo's deal sent me a copy of that. And I don't think I told you this, but she had an offer on the table. 360 was the price. And with an escalation clause, the buyer would have gone up to 375, but he had a house. That was the contingency in escrow. And if I was the listing agent or the seller, I probably would have taken that deal, right? But the seller did not want the contingency of going through that, so they took our deal. Offers something the seller wants. You know, in the situation of the old lady, the buyer made the offer of, I'll help you move. And let's go back to the listing agent, be nice to the listing agent. If the listing agent, catch this, if whatever the listing agent says in the MLS Plano, make sure that you do what they say. I have a title company that I like, and I put in the MLS that I want you to use my title company. I have a deal in escrow, and the only thing, and I had multiple offers on this, the only thing I changed, countered, was the title company, believe it or not. And there are some listing agents that are that really love their title company and don't arm wrestle somebody over the title company. If I represent the buyer, actually, as I do with Hugo, I went to a title company I've never been before, but I'll do that because I represent the buyer and I want him to get the house. But make sure that you read the private remarks, the semi-private remarks, everything that listing agent asks for, make sure that's in that purchase contract if you want to win it, because you would be amazed at how emotionally attached the listing agents are to some of those little line items. Number 12 on the list, somewhere along there, is write a cash offer only if you can. Choose the seller's close date. You know, you can ask the listing agent, just out of curiosity, what's the seller looking for? You could write an offer as is. You can shorten the inspection periods. The inspection provision. You could have, you know, actually our sponsor today, Renee, and Renee, are you listening? How long, if I were to call you right now, today, if one of the people on this call, the 57 people that are still on this call, would call you today, how quickly could you get a home inspector out to a property?
We are usually about 3 days out.
3 days out.
Yep.
And from the time your inspector went out, let's say 72 hours, how long would it take for you to have the report to the buyer and to the buyer's agent?
So most of our inspectors will complete the inspection on site and send it directly from the home.
Okay.
If they have another inspection to go to, they will finish it up that late afternoon. So you will have it by dinner time.
Okay.
That same day of the inspection.
Okay. So Renee, what I'm hearing you say is you can get somebody out to that property within 72 hours, and typically another day, you know, everybody's got all the stuff. So there's no reason, if they were to use Renee's inspection company, that you couldn't shorten the inspection period down to 5 days. Is that correct?
Right. And what I always recommend is we have an online scheduler. So if you're in the middle of writing a contract, by all means go to azinspect.com and you can actually see how far out we are. Because there are some times when we get a little bit backed up compared to other times, but you can go on azinspect.com and see how far we're booked out.
Okay. Does anybody, Tanya, do we have any other questions floating around? Anything that looks exciting? No, this is a very quiet group, Tanya. I don't know. They could be medicated. It could be the afternoon. Hopefully they're not doing, you know what we should do if we do this again, Tanya? We should give people a Red Bull. We should give them like a shot of Red Bull, and that way they'll be all jacked up with some questions. And, we're not going to bite you if you have a question. Even if John has a question, 2 weeks in the real estate business. John, let's pick on you just out of curiosity, because, and the question is, before we give John the accolades, John's been in the real estate business 2 weeks. Has anybody been in the real estate business less than 2 weeks? Anybody less than 2 weeks? Okay, John, you get the prize. Do you have any questions at this point in time, being brand new in the real estate business?
I really appreciated the handout. You asked earlier about a mastermind, and I wasn't quick on the draw to get my mic turned on. The broker I'm with has a contract writing mastermind group. And so I've actually written an offer, a faux offer,
Okay.
and I had the escalation clause in there and all those things. So really kind of practicing the things that are in your in the handout and that you're talking about today. So I feel like I'm good.
Well, good for you. A couple of tips I'll give you, John, being new in the real estate business, because I was new in the real estate business in 1977. My first year in the real estate business, I closed 55 units. That would be like a GCI today of about $500,000. And for the next 30 years, I averaged over 100 houses a year. Had a couple of years where I participated in over 200 sites. So I've sold a bunch of real estate, and a lot of the tips you can get in my book. So you might be interested in that.
I am.
Let's see. I think we're going to say one more time, be nice to the listing agent. And Ryan Holiday, if you like to read, anybody here like to read? Let me see a show of hands if you like to read. Here's a great book. It's called Ego is the Enemy by Ryan Holiday. And anything that Ryan Holiday has written, and he obviously does the blog stuff, you can take a look at his stuff, but ego is the enemy. And if you come across to the listing agent as an egotistical know-it-all, you are not going to get your deal through. You have to cooperate and not be competitive. Something that John could do if he were to call the listing agent, because you're saying new in the real estate business, he's screwed. You could call the listing agent, John, and you could say, I'm relatively new in the real estate business, and I would really appreciate any help you could give me. And there are, yes, Tanya.
2 questions.
Oh, yes.
First of all, what's the title of your book again?
The title of my book, and Oprah has been bugging me to send her a copy. And I said, Oprah, you have to go on Amazon and you have to buy this, because I don't care if you're a big shot and you want me to put me on your Sunday program, but it's Rookie to Realtor Emeritus. And you want to get $4.99 on Amazon. I'm not here selling books, but I'm just saying there are some great tips in that book. And education, for example, I don't care how long you've been in the real estate business. If I were to give you a tip, it would be read a lot and get a CRS designation. Some of the best tips I got, and this is CRS week. It stands for Certified Residential Specialist. And John, it's something that you could put on your bucket list to get a CRS designation, because I got a ton of designations, and CRS designation is fantastic. Maybe if you have time, I'll tell a little story about that. Yes, what else?
And then one more. Can you please elaborate on the as-is addendum?
Sure, and as-is addendum. What the as-is addendum says, right, and I think AAR has got an as-is addendum if you like using forms, it just says we're accepting the property as is. surprise, right? Does that make sense, John? Did you study the as-is addendum in your real estate school? Now, if we go back to Hugo's deal, I would rather waive the appraisal than waive the inspection and take the property as is. You know, and on Hugo's deal, just to complicate this a little bit, there's a little bit of a roofing issue. So we went back to on the Binzer and we said, you know, we want you to take care of the roof. Now, I know my buyer will probably take the property anyway, but we're waiting to hear what they're going to do. So what's the moral of that story? The moral of the story is you can waive the appraisal, but if you were to waive the appraisal and the buyer didn't qualify, I believe you're still out of the deal, right? And John, I don't even know if I really want to complicate this much for you, but you know, it's really hard to have a buyer's earnest money, lose a buyer's earnest money, right? Because some lenders, I shouldn't even tell you this story, but I'm going to tell you the story. There's a deal, and I have a feeling that the buyer found another house, and they went to their lender, and they basically said, you know what? I'd really like to buy this other house. Is there any way you can basically deny me the loan, and then I'll use you on the other house that I found? So I don't even want to tell you those little nuances that can happen on the side. Tanya, did you have any other questions there? No.
No.
John, do you have any questions since you're the king for the day? So if John is in the real estate business for 2 weeks, who is the most senior person on the call? Is there anybody in the real estate business more than 25 years? Raise your hand. Tanya, keep an eye out for everybody because I can only see one screen here. Anybody been in the real estate business more than 25 years? Do we see anybody, Tanya? Anybody in the real estate business more than 20 years? Yes, Tanya?
Do see one.
Who is that person?
Missy.
Where's Missy? Where's
But it's-
Missy? Missy, unmute yourself and or let everybody know because Missy deserves a little bit of attention, a little bit of love. And Tanya, if you would send her one of those leased Cadillacs.
I don't think it's really Missy though. I think it's a different login.
Oh, it's a different login.
It's
Oh,
Bill
this is a stealth. This is a stealth person. There's no picture there.
No, it's not Missy. It's Bill.
It's Bill Ryan. Oh, that's Missy. I want to say hi to my buddy Bill Ryan. Bill Ryan has been, Bill, how long have you been in the real estate business?
46 years.
46 years. It's amazing. Doesn't he look good for 92? Bill looks really, really good for 92. And just since we have the honor to have Bill here, Bill, John's been in the real estate business for 2 weeks. If you were to give him one tip, what would you give 2 weeks in the real estate business?
Oh gosh, there's several tips, but be there. Return your calls, get involved, be on time, just get serious about it. And Paul's mentioned everything. If you read Paul's book, there's not an idea in there that you wouldn't use in your career in your lifetime. So it's a great book.
Thanks, Bill.
Paul,
Okay.
I want to ask one question.
Yes, Bill.
We were talking earlier, that outfit you have on now was not the same outfit. Do you have the blue pants that go with that coat and tie? Or are you in your Bermuda shorts?
Bill, I don't have anything on from the waist down, but thank you for asking. And Tanya, one of the things I really was afraid of was that Bill was going to join our call here. Now, I have to move on. We may have to mute Bill. Okay, so we're down to round 20. Ask the agent how many offers. I think we covered that. Here, this is a good one. We're talking about, again, being nice to the listing agent. Do not bug. I want to say this 3 times because some of you guys don't know that I grew up in Rhode Island. I went to Catholic school, Catholic grammar school. Does anybody here, show of hands, been to Catholic grammar school? Anybody taught by the nuns? That's like amazing. I can still see on my knuckles the numbers 7, 8, and 9, where they used to beat me with that little ruler. But the nuns used to say 3 times for the normal mind. And the 3 things I want to say once again is be nice to the listing agent, be nice to the listing agent, be nice to the listing agent, and do not bug the listing agent. Don't bug him. I called on Hugo's deal. I called her on Friday, chatted with her. I called her on Monday. That's pretty much it. Pay for your own closing costs in home warranty. Ask no credits. You know, in the old days, you would always put a home warranty on a purchase contract. And now, if your buyer wants a home warranty, I strongly recommend that you have the buyer pay for the home warranty. It's really nice, a home warranty, but when you are wanting to win those multiple offers, those contracts have got to be absolutely, positively squeaky clean, right? No home warranty. You know, it could be just a little thing like a home warranty that causes the seller to go one way or the other. Something else I heard recently, which is really interesting, I have never done it myself, is the buyer, you ready for this? I bet you never heard this one. The buyer says to the seller, I will pay your title and escrow costs. I would bet that of the 54 offers that the gal had on our initial story, none of the buyers said, and once again, $360,000, right? I will pay your title and escrow costs. Now, what's that gonna cost? You know, maybe like 1%, you know, $3,500. But if it's going something different, right, I'll pay your title and escrow costs. That's something I don't think a listing agent is going to see too frequently. Having agent write a letter. Offer them with the seller. We talked about that. Offer sellers time to move. Okay, this is something that's I think a little interesting. We already said to ask the listing agent what the seller wants as far as a close date. But in the old days, when Bill and I were doing real estate like way back when, it was typical common practice that you would say COE plus 2. John, do you know, we're going to pick on you since you're the new guy. Do you know what COE plus 2 means? John does not know what COE plus 2. Does anybody here want to help John? Because we have some people that might want to participate. Would anybody like to unmute themselves and tell John? Sherry, I'm going to pick at you because you have a nice smile going there. Sherry, would you tell John what COE plus 2 means?
Isn't that close of escrow? I don't know what the plus 2 is though for sure.
Plus 2. Now wait a second. I'm going to give you a choice. Okay. COE plus 2 means COE plus I'll buy you 2 beers. That's A. B is COE plus you can come over to my house for 2 meals. Or C, COE plus 2 means after the close, you have 2 days to hang in that property before you move. A, B, or C, Sherry?
Definitely C.
Congratulations. So, Tanya, there's another Cadillac we have to give out. So where are we going here? We're basically saying sometimes it's nice to put in the purchase contract COE plus 2. So you're giving the seller 2 days to move after the close, right? I don't know that you need a post-possession agreement. You know, it's just that's the way that used to be, and it's just a cute little courtesy that most agents are not going to put in the purchase contract now. Let's see, where did you? Okay, so the other thing is, I think you need to be maybe 20% more assertive than you would normally be if you're dealing in a multiple offer situation. You have to maybe ask a question. Anybody remember Columbo on TV? Who remembers Columbo, the guy with, Debbie remembers Columbo on TV, right?
Yes.
So Debbie, you can unmute yourself and tell everybody what you remember about Columbo.
I don't remember much, but I remember seeing him being very cool, calm, and collected.
Cool, calm, and collected. So here's something Columbo used to do. Columbo, if you remember, he would ask a lot of questions, and he'd start walking onto the property, and then he'd turn around and go, oh, and then he'd ask a question. Then he'd take a couple more steps and go, oh. So make sure you ask the listing agent maybe more questions until they say, you know, I got an appointment. I gotta hit the trail. So you have to be 20% more assertive. Okay, so we're getting down to see you later time. This is the last chance you have to ask a question. So if you have a question, you could either put it in the chat, or since you only have a couple minutes to go, you can unmute yourself and you can ask a question. Would anybody like to unmute themselves and ask a question?
I will.
Yes, Deb, is that Debbie there?
Yeah.
Howdy.
So I had the first question about the down payment assistance because I
Oh.
tend to get a lot of them.
Yeah.
So the people that I have, there's a lot of programs available, so they really don't have to ask the sellers for anything, but they don't have any leverage. They don't have a lot of money for earnest. They don't have extra money that they could put towards, you know, escalation clauses or waiving appraisals, things like that. So I don't know, like the letter, I like the letter, I do that most of the time, but it's tough to get them houses. But, you know, I want to get them houses more for them because they're like first time home buyers. So
Okay.
I don't know if there's any special tricks for them.
Okay, so of the 25 things on that list, or anything that you heard today, what resonates the best with you that you think would help your first-time down payment assistance buyers the best? What would help the most? Something that you're dying to try?
Well, actually, the last one that I closed, it's so funny because I contacted the listing agent the next day and I said, hey, I just wanted to see how our offer was doing. And he said, we got 5 offers that were exactly the same. But I'll tell you what, they were all down payment assistance. This was in the $250 price range. He said, but you're the only one who called me.
Okay, now I know that there are people that are driving their car and there are people that are watching TV. I'm going to give you one more opportunity. I want Debbie to say that again, because just give us the last part of that, Debbie. Your buyer who had about a $250 price range. There's 5 offers on that property, and your buyer got that deal. Say that again.
Because I called and followed up and nobody else did.
Now, Debbie, when you called, and how long have you been in the real estate business?
6.5 years.
6.5. When you called, did you call and, you know, just demean the listing agent, or were you nice to the listing agent? Did you mock who they were voting for president, or did you talk about religion or politics? How nice on a scale of 1 to 10 were you, Debbie?
10.
10.
Nice.
Okay.
I just let them know that my buyer was really easy and I'm really easy to work with and it should be really smooth and, you know, they're really excited and we just are waiting to hear. And he just said, you know what, it's yours, you can have it. I was like, wow. I was kind of surprised, but that he didn't check with the seller first, but I think the seller was waiting for him to make a decision because literally they were all the same, you know, no home warranty, no anything. They were all DPA. So I always try to call, but I just wasn't sure if there's anything else because that was a couple months ago and now it seems to be a little bit harder.
So Debbie, let me ask you a question. If I'm listening to you correctly, you're talking about using the magic words. Does anybody here remember what your mom used, and your mom or your dad, but probably your mom used to say the magic words are? Does anybody want to share, besides Debbie, what the magic words are? What are the magic words? Please and thank you. Please and thank you. Remember when you used to say please and thank you? Anything you can do to ingratiate yourself, be humble to the listing agent. The listing agent is your gateway to a $10,000 bill. Be very nice to the listing agent. Anybody else have any questions? You can unmute yourself and you can come on and be famous, because I think Tanya is recording this. And by your coming on, you are going to be a star like John and Debbie.
I would like to say something.
Yeah.
And as I've pretty much been predominantly a listing agent the last few years. And when I have multiple offers and my client picks one, and then I call the other agent to say they didn't go with you, I've had agents just kind of like act like you're breaking up a relationship and, well, why didn't they go with me and why and blah, blah, blah. And it's very awkward. I mean, I just would say my clients made the decision.
Okay.
And so that's something that probably agents should avoid doing, just because they could be in front of you on the next one.
That's absolutely
Again,
correct.
and
So it sounds like, Kathy, you're talking about karma. You know, what goes around comes around.
yes,
And just out of curiosity, Kathy, are you a solo practitioner or do you have an assistant that you work with?
I work, with a brokerage and that, but no, I don't have an assistant. I don't have a team.
Okay, don't have a team, don't have an assistant. And when you call back the agents that didn't get the deal and they're snarky with you, how does that make you feel?
Very uncomfortable. I mean, I feel bad. I feel bad having to make the call because I know that their client really wanted the house.
Right.
And they stepped up and did, and I said, I really appreciate your offer. It was great, but I presented both to them and they went with the other one, and they'll say, well, can you tell me why? And all this, and it's, because I just recently had two that were just absolutely.
Hey, kiddo.
Hey, how's it going?
equal.
Good. How are you?
So,
Good.
Okay.
What are you up to?
Now, other than Kathy, you have to mute yourself. Okay. So Kathy, maybe, I think your point is made well, and I think everybody kind of catches that. Just be nice, even if your deal doesn't go through, just be nice, you don't have to, and Kathy doesn't have to tell people why the deal didn't go through. Maybe you should, personally, I don't know if I tell them why the deal went through. You know what, there's a better deal. The seller selected another offer. I wish you the best. God bless you. Hopefully, we can do a deal together in the future, but
Can I interject and just kind of ask Kathy, because I would agree with Paul, because one of the reasons I know that I ask is because I do like to pass it along to my buyers. The offer sucked, it didn't hit this number, or we were missing a few things. But I typically, along with Debbie, I try to remain courteous and calm, but I would like to have feedback that I can potentially pass along, because maybe we missed out on 5 other offers, 6 other offers, and trying to learn from the ones that didn't hit the mark.
so
and
Myrtle,
I
are you
agree.
there?
That was fine. That part didn't bother me at all because I get that. I understand that. So, because you can take that back to your clients to educate them. It was just where it was, they just kind of continued like I don't know, it just was.
Okay, so Kathy, it's 1 o'clock and we're gonna let you be the last person to say something. What, if anything, did you learn today that you feel if you implement, it might make your business easier? What would the thing be?
Well, I think just there's all these fantastic ideas for buyers agents being in the situation of the multiple offers, because I'm also in that same boat too. And so there's a lot of things that I think are excellent, just beyond just the acceleration clause.
Great. Well, thank you very much. And we're going to close by saying, if you ever find yourself in South Chandler near Infinity Real Estate and you see Bill trying to cross Arizona Avenue, make sure you help him across the street, because he's an old guy and he needs that kind of help. Tanya, do you have anything else? Well, that's it. Thanks everybody for tuning in. I'm sure you're going to get a feedback form. And once again, I want to go on Oprah. So if you send in good feedback, I might be on Oprah, and then I'll ask Debbie and John and some of you guys to join us. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Paul. Great.
Thank you.
Great.
Awesome.
Appreciate it.